logged in and connected to audio should be able to hear us. If you can't, you can use the chat feature and let me know, and we'll figure out what's going on.
Okay. I see. Okay. Hi, everyone. I don't know if, hopefully you can hear me. You are on with Rick Yale, John Carolla, Jessica Charters, and Wally Ip. We're the council board of the Marina Bay Association, and we also have our property manager, Veronica.
Good morning.
We are holding this session today to basically try to answer questions, to explain what the 3 amendments that we are proposing, what they're about, and to answer questions for those of you that want to have a little more information about what these amendments covered before you vote on them. So the way we're going to try to handle this, we don't have a tremendous number of people. The way we're going to try to handle this as far as questions go is, rather than use the chat box to begin, although I see that I have Mark Moskowitz on, and he's used to reading the chat boxes for us, but or at least the 3 amigos he was. We'll unmute you. You have to let us know that you have a question. I guess if you have your video on, you could kind of raise your hand when you have a question, and we'll unmute you. Otherwise, if you don't, then use the chat box to say, I have a question, and we'll unmute you.
Barry, there's also a feature that, just real quickly, there's also a feature called reactions where you can raise your hand. Yeah. It should be at the bottom bar. If you look at Veronica, I'm raising my virtual hand, so you can feel free to use that as well.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, now I'm raising my hand twice. Hang on. There we go.
Okay. So let's go, and I'll do some of the talking. I'd like some of my other board members to jump in, especially when what I'm saying is completely wrong. But the first amendment that I'm going to take what should be the easiest amendment to explain. This should be, as far as I am concerned, a complete 100% no-brainer for passage. I was surprised to see that there were, of the online voting results, that there were 7 or 8 individuals that voted against this First Amendment. And for the life of me, I'm not sure why. But the First Amendment concerns the capital contribution. This is, these are funds that are collected at the time of settlement. The PCA has collected capital contributions on sales. What we did with this amendment was simply, we looked at the capital contribution amount of $600. And we looked at the fact that new home sales had, for the most part, ended, leaving us with just resales, which are not few and far between, but there are many less sales than new home sales. And so we decided to increase that amount from $600 to $750, which I think, Veronica, tell me, it matches what the PCA collects. Is that correct?
Actually, the PCA collects a percentage of the sales price, so it's a different.
Right. Okay. Which is a different, but in our case, we didn't want to do that. So we basically increased the amount to $750. these are funds that go into, Rick, our general account.
Yeah, that's correct, Barry. And just to add, so the PCA collects a percentage of the sales price. Sales prices have gone up considerably over the last couple of years. So I think we felt that there was, because it was a fixed number, we should raise it to basically reflect inflation to some degree, the inflated prices of homes. That's correct.
So that's what this amendment does. Now, the capital contribution does not affect, let me be clear about this. It does not affect you, the seller, whatsoever. Whatever effect you might think it has on a buyer, I kind of assure you that on homes approaching $1 million or in that vicinity, no one, I believe, buying a home is going to refuse to buy that home because there's a capital contribution of $750 or $600 or $1,000 if that were the case. That isn't going to happen. There's no way that this capital contribution would stand in the way of a purchase. That being the case, I'm not sure what reason there would be not to vote in favor of this amendment. So I've just stood on my soapbox on this, and I'm going to ask the other board members if any thoughts, additional thoughts they have on this. Jess, Rick, you're our treasurer.
No, I mean, again, look, if you're selling your home for $900,000, the bigger issue, quite frankly, is the PCA will require the buyer to pay 0.5% or about $4,500. We're talking about $150 increase from 600, again, to keep up with the rising costs of home prices. So I think this is fair. At the end of the day, Barry, we've all paid this in the past. Why shouldn't new members pay it in the future? We're all in it together, Barry.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's another good way of looking at it. We had to do it. Why don't the people that buy our house have to do it? But okay, with that said, unless any of the other board members have anything to add, does anybody have in our audience, does anybody have any questions on this? Because we're going to go amendment by amendment for question purposes. So anybody have any questions on this? Do we see any virtual raised hands, actual raised hands?
Barry?
Yes.
Kathy Lucenti. I just have a concern. I want to know what the fund actually supports. Where does the money go from this money that we collect from the new buyers?
Okay, well, it doesn't go to the board members, number one, and now I'll turn it over to Rick.
I mean, Kathy, it basically goes to the general fund, which will really, it's either going to support our contribution to the irrigation system or pay for the insurance, which we talk about in Amendment 2 or 3. So in essence, it defrays our contributions to a small amount going forward.
So my concern, and I had expressed this to Barry, the new homes along 18th and the Bay are not in an HOA. So
yes, they're not.
When you're talking about $900,000 homes, those homes are nowhere near $900,000. So it does make a difference if I put my house up for sale and I have one along 18th and the Bay. As a buyer, I might see that as a deterrent I don't know, maybe, but,
The seven, so you're saying, I guess, if I'm understanding what you're saying, if you put your home up for sale at
Yeah.
around the same time that somebody else in the non-association homes put their home up for sale, that their home might sell before yours because the buyer would say, oh, I can buy that home and I don't have to pay the $750. But if I buy Kathy's home, I have to pay the $750. Is that what you're saying?
that's correct.
Is that your concern?
Well,
And
my-
it's actually it's a bigger picture than that, because if the individual chooses to buy that home on 18th Boulevard, then they're buying outside of a condominium association and they're responsible for their own homeowner's insurance. Whereas the Marina Bay Townhome Condominium Association, those fees, whether they come out of your pocket as those quarterly assessments or they're the capital contribution, those fees primarily are going towards insuring your home. So it's a part, I just wanted to bring that up, that it's a part of that puzzle, but it's not the whole picture for that buyer looking at the two properties.
Yeah. I'll get back to, reiterate, a comment I made just before we opened it up for questions. If the two homes are up for sale and they're in and around the same cost, do you really think that the $750 that we collect versus the home that doesn't collect it is going to make the difference in the people buying the home? I don't think so. I could it. I'm not going to say that it absolutely would not enter somebody's a buyer's decision, but put yourself in that same place. Especially if the people looking at your home like your home, maybe as opposed to the home, the other home that they're looking at. But in reality, I don't think that, I really don't believe that the $750 would influence someone against buying your home vis-a-vis a home where they were not collecting that $750.
Barry,
If I could add-
I'd like to add that at least in the community, in the condo association, I'd like to think we're getting better rates on our insurance as opposed to going out and buying that individually. Plus, you also know that your neighbor has insurance. I worry, and Veronica and I talked about this. I worry that on 18th on the Bay, there could be homeowners there that don't have any insurance at all. They pay cash. They have no mortgage. The community probably needs to ensure that everyone does have insurance should the catastrophe happen.
So hopefully we, Kathy, I don't want to.
If I could add back.
Yeah, no, please,
Kathy's
John.
question. Her situation or her example that she's using is not unique to 18th on the Bay. I mean, us in Marina Bay that have been here for years have dealt with that same issue with all the outer perimeter homes around Marina Bay Circle. They are not condo homes either. It's not unique, and it has never stopped anybody from buying in the condo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm okay with this answer. I just had another question, and it had to do with the irrigation, because I know that some of this funding maintains our irrigation. Is their irrigation completely separate? And I'm talking about the Lanier houses along 18th and the
Yes. Yes.
So if
Yes,
there
it is.
our funding,
It is. Yes, it is, Kathy. We were approached at one point. I'll just tell you, we were approached by OA at one point while they were building the Lennar homes to ask if we wanted to share our system with them. There were going to be some financial considerations that might have made that attractive to us. Whatever the case is, they decided that they did not want to do that. So they basically dug their own well, Kathy. So they are on a completely separate system.
okay. They were my two main concerns. So thank you, Barry, for answering them.
Okay, so we have your vote on this, correct? I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. You don't have to. That's just a little levity.
This is America, right?
It is America. You know, I'm not so sure that that's a good thing, but no, it is America. Yes, I'm only kidding. So have we covered for everybody that is on questions on this particular amendment?
Steve does have his hand
Easiest.
raised. I'm going to go ahead and ask Steve to unmute.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for the board for the time that you've devoted to this. Appreciate it. I have a question. So we're talking about the capital contribution needing to raise the value of it because of the decline in new home sales. So we're talking about an increase of $150. We don't know the progression of resales. My question is that enough to fund what's needed to support what the community is using these funds to drive?
Rick?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly debated, Steve, the amount. If you went to our last meeting, my guess is we will need to raise dues in the coming years to cover our costs. But I think we felt it fair at 750. At least it's commensurate in real dollars to what other people have paid in the past. Thus, then moving forward, we'll raise adjust dues accordingly as we see fit. And again, it's just basically two significant costs. One is the insurance for our homes, and the second is to fund the reserve fund for the irrigation system. So it's a fairly easy budget to put together.
Okay, thank you.
No, I think you've covered it, Rick. That does that, Steve, that covers,
It does. I mean, but I don't, the reason I ask is because I don't think that we should say that this is anything but a stopgap measure, because it's again, we don't know the rate of resales, but relative to new home sales that had taken place in the past, say, 3 years, it's not going to make up for that.
No, and we never thought that it would. This was just more a practical and fairness aspect. And we debated, could we have raised it to 1,000 or 1,500? Yeah, sure, we'd like to, but that would have posed some barriers. If there's a question as to whether $750 would affect the sale, there certainly would be questions as to whether $1,500 might affect a sale. So no, it's not going to make up for it, Steve.
Okay.
But
No, I respect
we
the
thought
process.
this was the best. Yeah.
I do respect the process, but given the value of the transaction, I don't believe that $150 is an insurmountable expense relative to everything else, the fixed costs within both HOAs. It's that understanding of coming into the community.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Steve, it's really a balancing act between your thoughts and what Kathy said just 3 or 4 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So we've got to respect
that's exactly
both opinions.
Thank you for answering my question.
That's exactly right.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is a balancing act. Okay, with that, let us move on to the second amendment that we put forth. And that amendment deals with the deductible on repairs that are made. So let me explain, and again, I'll ask our board members or Veronica to jump in when they feel that I'm incorrect in my description of this, but essentially, the association is responsible for ensuring that all repairs are made to a home that suffers damage. And we have a master insurance policy that covers damages. That policy carries a $5,000 deductible. In reality, although the policy carries a $5,000 deductible, the association being responsible for ensuring that all repairs are made would in fact otherwise be responsible for that $5,000 deductible were the homeowner not to have the ability to cover that additional $5,000 that would fall to them as a result, again, of our policy having that deductible. So what we were saying in essence with this amendment, I don't want to get technical about it, was simply that the responsibility for paying that $5,000, the deductible amount, would fall to the homeowner as opposed to the association. Now, what would the implication be of the association having to cover that $5,000? Well, and I think Rick can definitely agree with this. The association doesn't have funds to cover the deductible amounts. So let's take one example. I have damage to my home, and I don't have $5,000 to cover that deductible. The associate to ensure the repairs are made in full, the association's master policy comes in, pays an amount up to the $5,000. The association says, Barry, we need to finish these repairs, and you have to the $5,000. You have to cover that because our policy doesn't. I say I don't have those funds available. That would then fall on the association to make up that amount, that $5,000. Well, how would we do that, given the fact that the funds that we collect every year basically go to paying insurance and money put in reserve for our infrastructure, our irrigation? The way that would operate in that particular scenario would be that there would have to be a collective contribution or special assessment. So we would take that $5,000 and it would be divided among the, I think, 228 homes in the association, thereby resulting in a special assessment of, I think I calculated somewhere like $91 or something in that regard against all 228 association homeowners. Rick, is that how it would operate?
Well, Barry, since we took over, and just for everybody on the phone, we've only been on the board of the association for a little over a year. But from what I can tell in terms of history, we've never budgeted for this deductible. If it was the intent of the association to pay the deductible, I would have thought it would have been budgeted in the past. It's never been budgeted. I think your math might be a little bit off, Barry. I think if you take $5,000 divided by 200,
I'm sure it is. Anybody that knows me knows my math is off.
It's only $25
Okay.
a homeowner, but it's at least always been my impression, and I think Veronica, from your perspective, that deductible was to be covered by the homeowner.
Yes,
Right.
to confirm, it's been common practice that deductible has been collected from the homeowner since the beginning of the association, and it is not and has not been budgeted for within the condominium association budget.
Now, whether that's been properly communicated to homeowners in the past, I don't know if that we can say that particularly, but yeah, that's history.
That I apologize for the math error. You're absolutely right. It's why I was deferring to you when it comes to that. The point of the example that I was making was that the last thing that we want as an association is to have to impose a special assessment on the homeowners collectively. So this amendment basically said we were affirmatively, it had always operated to our knowledge. It's never happened where the homeowners where an assessment has had to be made, at least in our, not to our knowledge, and the intent behind this was to affirmatively put into our declaration the responsibility of the payment of the deductible by the homeowner. There had never been, specific language to that effect in the declaration. That's what this did. Now, most people have, I would say most, if maybe not all, homeowners have, as part of their HO6, your personal insurance, a coverage known as loss assessment coverage. I call it deductible coverage, but it's a coverage or an endorsement on your personal insurance policy, and it's very inexpensive, that pays this deductible, that comes in and pays this deductible. So the effect of this on the homeowner, assuming that you have this coverage, which again, most if not all of you do, is minimal. Having this coverage ensures that your personal insurance will cover the deductible up to whatever deductible amount you have on your own policy. But otherwise, that was the intent. The intent behind this amendment was to ensure that the homeowner became responsible for covering this deductible and ensuring in this regard that the association would not be responsible, that the result would not end up being the possibility of the association having to somehow cover the payment of a deductible, which would end up being a collective responsibility of all of the homeowners.
Barry, I want to make a small clarification on that. The loss assessment coverage, I do believe in most cases would also cover that deductible, but that is something that each individual homeowner should address and question with their carrier. In some cases, and this is in the summary that we've provided to the homeowners, in most cases, it's the HO6 loss assessment coverage, but there is also something else called the dwelling A coverage form. And so your deductible coverage might not necessarily be in your loss assessment coverage. So just a question that you all as individuals should confirm with your individual broker or carrier.
By the way,
Barry, it's Alan Burke. Can I interrupt for a minute?
Yeah, could hold just 1 second, Alan.
Sure, go
if
ahead.
you don't mind. Yeah, and then go. We did have a session, an insurance session with the association's broker about about a year ago, where he covered the various endorsements and aspects of a condo or HO6 policies. We recorded it. It is up on our YouTube channel. I encourage any of you who have questions about insurance and insurance coverages to take a look at that video. Go ahead, Alan.
So most of you know, and the board is aware of my situation. I'm the perfect example of this. I had a flood in my house back in October. We had the $5,000 deductible. We have State Farm, so they had a $2,000 deductible with that. State Farm reimbursed me the difference of $3,000, which was great. There was faulty, underneath the sink, the hose came off. So we've given the hose to the Peninsula, to Veronica. I'm expecting $2,000 back from that. So if that's the case, there's no reimbursement from the homeowners association, but I have not heard back from Veronica about the $2,000. That's still outstanding. And just my last thing is I gotta get back to work is, as I told the board, my check got sent to Langdon in Texas, and it took 7 weeks from that point to get my check. I was luckily able to afford this, and I put the money up front and started to work. But not having a kitchen for 4 to 5 months has been pretty much hell. It's really been difficult. And for them to hold on to a check for 2 months was just completely unnecessary, in my opinion. And I had a real problem with it. I just wanted to make people aware of it, that is something that should be taken care of in the future, and that no one should have to deal with what I just dealt with. And that's just my opinion on that. And that's, thanks.
I think I addressed that with you, in the email I sent you, and I couldn't agree more. That was adding insult to injury, without a doubt, to use the tired cliche. We discussed that this morning, with Veronica, and I offline, if you'd like, give me a call or check, and I can tell you what we discussed. But that's not going to happen again. You didn't deserve to go through that at all. It should not have happened. There are some explanations for, unfortunately, why it did for you, but we are going to take steps that will not happen again.
I appreciate it. Thanks. And I think that's the benefit of everybody in the community. But I do still have the $2,000 outstanding. So I would like to have follow up on that issue when there is. Okay.
Again, give me a call and I'll discuss that, with you as well.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Everybody enjoy.
Thanks for understanding, Alan.
Bye.
So I think Amendment 2, any other questions before we get to the third amendment? Comments? Criticisms? None?
I'm not seeing any raised or waved hands.
Wow. Okay. So Amendment 3. To keep this as simple as I can, Amendment 3 goes hand in hand with Amendment 2. Amendment 3, in the simplest way I can explain it, was basically required homeowners, this coverage, deductible loss, whatever term we want to use again for this particular endorsement, but that homeowners would carry an endorsement would have an endorsement on their insurance policies that covered the payment of the deductible. The reason for this, simply put, was that if you didn't carry this coverage, then the net effect would be as if there was no requirement for the there was no requirement for the homeowner to pay this deductible, which back on the association, it would end up resulting in exactly the scenario that I painted, where the association would have to come in to collectively pay for cover that deductible. So we were basically, with this amendment, saying we want all homeowners, for their own benefit, to carry this particular coverage. Please, other board members, jump in on what I've just said. Jess?
Well, Barry, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to say that not only for the homeowner benefit, but I think I'm probably the one person on the board who lives in the townhouses. So for me, it is important to know that my next door neighbors have insurance. If something happens in their unit and it trickles over to my unit, we want to make sure that everybody's insured. So not only is it in the best interest of the individuals, but what we are tasked with is what is in the best interest of the association. And I feel personally that requiring homeowners to have insurance, especially in our situation, is very important and in the best interest of the association.
And
well stated.
Fair to say this coverage, this loss assessment coverage, is not expensive. At least in my case, I think it's $25 or $30 a year. So it's cheap coverage. It's a relatively cheap peace of mind.
The thought process behind this was that it was, I guess you could say, for the collective good of association homeowners, and that was the reason for this particular amendment, which, as I say, goes hand in hand with the second amendment regarding the deductible. That's again, keeping it as simple and non-technical as possible. That was the easiest way to explain this particular amendment. Both the second and the third amendment we felt were extremely important. So with that, I guess the easiest, questions.
Barry, it's Kathy Luceni again. I just had a question. How and I'm happily for both those last two amendments. My question is in regards to how's it going to be monitored and how's it going to be enforced? Who's doing this?
Yeah. Those are questions that we've asked. And we've thought
we
about.
haven't really talked about this at the board level, but it's not unreasonable for your managing agent to once a year send out a letter asking everybody to submit a certificate of insurance to us. So as the board, we can talk about logistics and timing for all of that, but we can certainly do that. Have not discussed that directly yet with the board to put that in place.
So I'm going to jump in here if that's okay, Barry. I live
please, Kathy.
I live in we own another condominium in Arlington, Virginia. It's about the same size as our association here, but it's a high rise. And when we purchased our unit last year, we were required to provide a copy of that insurance. And every year, the property manager, who is just like it is here, is on site. She will come and knock on your door. She'll put a note on your door. She sends out an email, she asks you to send it. So they're pretty bulldogish there about us providing insurance. It's a little different there because we're in a high rise. Definitely very important there because we get water problems all over the place. Sometimes it's an older building. So, but they do, our property management company manages that. So Kathy, they are on top of that, and there is a way to manage that process through the management company.
Yep.
Yeah. This is, again, realizing for everybody, this is new, you know, to us, and we're, you know, at least here, you know, in uncharted territory, that, you know, as a result of, you know, this board stepping in, and taking a look at what our, you know, situation was and trying as best as we could to address those areas that we thought needed to be addressed, this being one. But yeah, I think the way Jess described it is what we would do. What would happen if someone were not able to provide or didn't provide that certificate? Well, to be honest, we haven't discussed that aspect of which basically would be enforcement. Hopefully, we wouldn't have to cross that path, but it is something that you know, that's a further step down the road for us. The enforcement part of this. Did that answer your question, Kathy? Hello? Am I not hearing?
I'm sorry, Barry. I had a hard time getting the unmute to unmute.
Oh, okay.
No questions.
Did we?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Did we answer that as
Yes,
best
you
we
did.
could? Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else? Wow. Well, gee,
Barry,
I
can I
thought
talk a little bit about logistics?
absolutely. Yeah, please.
Just want to remind everybody that it does take 67% of the community voting yes for each of the individual amendments to pass. We are voting them in separately. So I would encourage you, if you did wait for this meeting to vote, you should have 1 or 1 million emails from Vote HOA Now with the link and the information to hop right on there and vote. So I would encourage you to go in and cast your vote now. And when you're out there talking to your neighbors, if you could please also drum up some interest for us as well, and remind people and ask people if they've gone in to submit their vote.
Yes.
Because it's not just a majority of the community voting, it's a majority of the community voting yes in order for it to pass. And I do see that Steve has raised his hand.
If these amendments don't pass, what is the plan? Is there a plan to address it in the future?
Well, yes. Yeah, we would try again.
Yeah.
Maybe take the blame for our not explaining these you know, in the best way. We tried to pass these, Steve, as you may or may not be aware. I think at our last meeting, we didn't have a quorum, but what came back to us was we had not done a good job of explaining what each of these amendments were for. And in fact, we didn't. You know, we knew what they were about. Maybe we thought that, you know, our collective thought process would ooze out to everybody, and that they would understand as we did. But obviously that wasn't the case. So to that end, we spent quite some time, I know Wally can attest to this, on Jess too, going back and forth on sending out a communication that described these. And then we put together this informational session with the idea that we would explain them and then be available for questions. So we're crossing our fingers that we've done it right in this time. If not, if it doesn't pass, it doesn't mean that we don't believe strongly in these 3, you know, changes to the declaration. And I believe we would go at it again.
And I appreciate that. The concern that I have is that it's going to take a 2/3 majority to change it. And so it's dependent upon a high level of participation in those voting.
Yes.
And being involved in other HOAs outside of this community. It's my experience that there's about 2/3 of the people that vote.
Yeah.
And a third that doesn't.
You're right. You're right. And you know, yes, you're absolutely right. You know, it's, you know, the process can be, you know, that can be as a result of that 1/3 that doesn't vote being not interested. It can also have to do with those people that don't necessarily open or even read emails that come. They get inundated, because remember, you're getting emails from our association on top of all of the emails you're getting from the PCA, and those emails you get from the club. Add those together, and yeah, it can be a bit overwhelming. You're right, Steve. The best we can do is you know, to beat the drums and hope that you know, we can push that 1/3. You know, get some of that 1/3 and keep the 2/3 and have everybody in that 2/3 group realize that these amendments are important. And in that respect, those of you that are on this call, whether or not people vote, we want them to vote for these amendments. But just as importantly, in a way, I want them to vote. To not vote at all, and in a way, I know, you know, to me seems, you know, worse than voting against the amendments. At least if you've voted against it, you've made an informed decision, and you've made an affirmative, you've taken an affirmative action. But to do nothing is, you know, is maybe the worst of all. So I guess I would ask those of you that have joined us today to please talk to your neighbors, your friends that live here, to encourage them to vote, and hopefully to vote for these amendments.
I'll add to that. Again, we encourage people to vote online, but two things: if people are just not comfortable voting online, you can just submit a proxy here to our office. I have certainly had associations in the effort to pass an amendment, you know, bring paper copies and knock on doors, or just carry them when you're out walking the dog and chatting with neighbors and that kind of thing. Also, if individuals already went in and submitted their vote and wish to change their vote, we can't go back to the electronic voting, but a proxy submitted after you did your vote online would supersede your vote online. So if you talk to anybody and convince them to change their vote, they just need to fill out that paper proxy and get it here to our office, or bring it to the special meeting on March 10th.
Yeah, to let you know, Steve, we in looking at how we could increase the percentage of voters, we looked at the online process. Now, this was something that, you know, there was a cost to this, to the association. We felt that it was well worth the cost, be it that it, you know, it wasn't large, but we felt that it was well worth the cost of instituting this online process, because we were looking at what can we do to increase the number of people that will actually vote. We wanted to make it as straightforward and as easy as possible to get, you know, to increase the numbers. So anybody else? None? Okay. So last thing, Veronica, please go over this again. We have sent out, or not we, but everybody should have received an online ballot, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Vote
Right.
HOA now sends them directly. So if you did not receive that, reach out to our office. It's likely an issue with the email address, whether it's going to spam or we have a typo in your email address, something along those lines. So if you haven't been harassed by Vote HOA now with a million emails, definitely give my office a call and we'll get you squared away. Again, either with the online information, or if people are more comfortable just filling out that piece of paper and bringing it back to us, we can do it that way as well.
Okay, so, and those, they will continue to receive online ballots. Vote HOA will continue to send these out through the
They send reminders to everybody who has not yet voted. So if you
Okay.
already went online and voted, you should not be getting any more emails from them. If
Okay.
you have not voted, you're getting reminder emails.
Okay, that then brings us up to the special meeting. Can you, for the benefit of those still on the call, can you explain what our situation is with that? We've
So
set up a
because-
special meeting.
Right, so in order to do this vote, we've set up the special meeting. The sole purpose of the special meeting is to vote on the 3 amendments. Because we are doing the online voting ahead of time, frankly, that, anybody who votes online, that counts as your quorum, as your proxy, that counts as your proxy to the meeting and counts towards quorum. So again, that's why it's important, whether or not you can be there on the 10th, to either submit your proxy by going online and voting, or providing us with that paper copy, so that we can reach not only that 154 votes that we need to pass the amendments, but the 100, the allowing for some no votes in there as well. On March 10th, we will certainly open the floor to any questions similar to what we did today, with the understanding that because most people have gone online and voted ahead of time, that the numbers, whatever we're going to collect on March 10th is probably not going to make or break the deal at that point. But as a formality, we will hold a brief special meeting of homeowners on March 10th. Certainly, if you're out walking the dog and people still have questions, tell them that they can come to that meeting with their proxy, or we'll provide ballots on that day. Once we call the question and close the voting at that meeting, we're going to go immediately into a board meeting of the association. So we're encouraging homeowners certainly to stick around for our first quarter board meeting as well.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, we look forward to, please, you don't have to, if you voted, as Veronica said, you don't have to attend this meeting. We'd like you to, just because we'd like you to stick around for the board meeting following the special meeting, which the special meeting is just being piggybacked, so to speak, on top of the board meeting, or vice versa. But at the board meeting, that's where we can discuss general aspects of board business and association business. So any of my compadres on the board have anything to add? Rick, Wally, Jessica, John?
Good, I'm
Okay.
good.
Yeah, that was good. Good, Barry.
Well, I want to thank all of you that joined us. Please encourage, again, your friends, relatives, enemies, neighbors, to please cast your vote. And with that, I guess I bid everybody a goodbye and a thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care, Lone Blair.
Oh, we are recording this, by the way, so we'll post this.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Take care.